One of the challenges of having a channel my size is that I don't get to get the jump whenever new things are released. That's just simply not a luxury that I have. And it can get discouraging even making videos about Harman Phoenix 200 and 120 format practically a whole month after all of the excitement has already died down. But this channel was never designed for keeping up with trends. If anything, it's just to document my journey with film photography. I watch some of my old videos and I like to see how far I've come and see all of the ways that I have improved as a photographer. And speaking of improvements and excellent segues, Harman released their color film Phoenix in 120 format about a month before this video is going to come out. If you don't remember or are new to film photography, Harman Technology, the primary manufacturers for Ilford's black and white film, released their very own color negative film called Harman Phoenix in 35mm format in 2023. Well, less than a year later, Harman announced they would be making 120 rolls of Harman Phoenix. The reactions to Harman Phoenix when it first came out were mixed, skewing positive. In some ways, they were how cinephiles talk about Francis Ford Coppola's new movie Megalopolis. It's marvelous that it exists, but it's rough around the edges and not everyone's cup of tea. A lot of people at the time were dissatisfied because they were expecting something refined or on par with the color films that had been extensively and meticulously crafted over decades of R&D. So when they got something that appeared to be in the beta stage of production, they were slightly miffed. Others, like myself, chose to see the overwhelming net positive that this would have on the film community. And then Harman heard our cries and gave us this, Phoenix, in 120. Now, if you've never shot Harman Phoenix in 35mm format and you're unsure of the proper way to shoot it, there is a wealth of resources right here on YouTube for you. Some of my favorites to check out are Kyle McDougall and Pushing Film. I recommend their videos on shooting Phoenix 120, but I'll sort of parrot a lot of the similar talking points that they have in their videos. The first one being that despite what it says on the box, you should shoot this film at 100 ISO. Harman Phoenix tends to not handle shadows very well, and so that leads to muddiness and grainy images. Which leads me to number 2, which is to look for low contrast scenes to photograph for the best results. Now that autumn is here in New York and the weather is calming down and we get some more overcast days, this might be the ideal time to shoot something like Harman Phoenix. And number 3, scanning methods for this film seem to be a little all over the place. When new things come out, it's only natural that it takes a community of people to figure out the best uses and practices for that thing. So with scanning, a lot of folks are saying that the scans they get back from the lab end up being overly saturated with really punchy contrast. And that doesn't necessarily mean the labs are doing anything wrong, just that their scanners aren't equipped to deal with a film like this. So for the best results, a lot of people are saying that doing home scanning with a DSLR and something like Negative Lab Pro are going to give you the best results for this film. I'm still working on perfecting my home scanning setup, so I can't really confirm that just yet, but I'd love to make a video about that when I have it all finalized and ready to go. So all of that being said, I do have this roll here. I'm going to load it up in my Bronica SQAI. I'm going to go out and shoot. And then when I get the scans back, I'm going to come back here and talk about the photos more specifically. So I'll see you then. I'm back here in the studio. I got my scans back from Harman Phoenix 120. Got them back yesterday. I'm going to take a look at them on the computer, and we're going to just sort of take a look at what I got. Starting with this picture here of my cat Pierre. I got a little ahead of myself. So this is the scan that I got back from the lab, and as we could tell, it's a very high contrast scene. And I was curious just a second ago, what would happen if I raised all the shadows up? And we're getting a decent amount of detail in the shadows, certainly more than we saw with the 35mm rolls of this film. Found it very, very difficult to get that blue cast away from the shadows when adjusting the color temperature. Like if I crush the blacks a little bit, they start to go away, but I really have to crush the blacks as far as I can go in order for the blue cast to go away. So that was something that I found kind of interesting and seems to be not so desirable when it comes to this film. We'll see if that changes as we go through the rest of them. I want to take a look at some photos of the Wythe Hotel that I took some photos of in 35mm, so because I wanted to compare what they would look like. So here, looking pretty good, honestly. We'll zoom in a little bit, and we could see some of that halation coming on this O right here. Yeah, I mean, all in all, looks really, really solid, really, really clean. I think maybe the picture of Pierre might have just been too dynamic of a scene, too much contrast going on. And like I mentioned in the first half of this video, we're looking for low contrast scenes to be photographing. And when I go to the hotel sign, sure, we have a nice bright sun illuminating everything, but everything seems to be pretty evenly lit across the board. So we're not seeing as harsh a reaction, even if we could pull up those shadows and they look pretty good. They were able to reduce some of the crunchiness, some of that overly saturated look that everyone was sort of complaining about. I want to quickly compare the 120 version of this with the 35mm version of this. Let me see. This is actually kind of crazy seeing them side by side like this. These are just scans that I got back from the lab, and right off the bat, you see some major, major differences, especially looking back at that 35mm version. I remember getting that and thinking it looked so cool because it was so unique, and it's obviously very contrasty and very saturated and very punchy in the ways that the 120 version, at least my 120 version, are not. And obviously these are taken on 2 different days, and also this hotel sign was taken, well, actually it was taken about a year ago, so it was the same time of year roughly. Just the color of the building itself looks incredibly different. The sky obviously looks very different. Yeah, I'm kind of curious why that is. But yeah, seeing these side by side definitely gives you a bit of appreciation, and maybe it has something to do with the scanning. I know that when the 35mm version of this came out, a lot of labs were sort of confused how they were supposed to scan it, and maybe my lab refined their Harman Phoenix scanning process, and that is very much a possibility. I'll have to go talk to them and see if they did anything differently for this 120 version than this 35mm version. But anyway, yeah, let's keep going with the rest of the 120 roll. This one's okay. I took some photos of someone's front steps. They had some Halloween decorations up. I shouldn't say incredibly premature because Halloween isn't that far away, but I don't know. I'm like a decorate a week before the thing kind of person. But anyway, overall here, I mean, we're seeing a really, really great amount of detail, especially in the shadows, and the colors especially just look a lot better and cleaner than they did in the 35mm version. We're seeing this across the board. And I'm not sure if it was mentioned earlier in the video because I'm recording this at a later date, but I shot this at 100 ISO, which seems to be the rule of thumb. Everyone agrees that while it says 200 on the package, shoot this at 100 ISO if you want the best results, and I think that shows in most of my images. Here's another one that is sort of interesting. I want to kind of go to the develop tab here and mess around with this. The color temperature thing appears to be the only thing of note with this entire roll, and potentially with Harman Phoenix in general. There isn't an incredible amount of latitude. It is sort of like a what you get is what you get. Whereas when I shoot things like Kodak Color Plus or Pro Image or some Fuji stocks, I'm able to play around with the color temperature a little bit more liberally than I am with Harman Phoenix. It appears you do get a pretty flat image, and it allows you to play around with the highlights and the shadows quite a bit. But when it comes to the color temperature, it doesn't seem to have a whole lot of latitude. Yeah, let's go over to a few photos that I took at the Met cloisters. Outside of this little light leak, which pops up every now and then on the Bronica, yeah, we get a really nice, evenly distributed image, and one that allows me to mess around quite a bit. I mean, just bringing the highlights down looks pretty good. Shadows, getting quite a bit of shadow detail in there, and yeah, overall, I am very pleased with the dynamic range, the way that the dynamic range is shifted from the 35 millimeter version to the 120 version. Let's go to some more high contrast scenarios like this one. In particular, we got some real dark shadows, which the shadows, I'm not sure why, but they always tend to lean quite blue. Hopefully that registers on your screen as well. But these shadows have this real bluish cast to them, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. In this photo, we could also see quite a bit of the halation in some of these highlights over here. Yeah, but that blue cast in the shadows does kind of bug me, and the only way to really, I've found, to combat it is just to crush the blacks a little bit. And again, these are untouched by me. These are just scans that I got back from the lab just yesterday. But other than the blue cast and the shadows, I am very impressed with the latitude that I get out of this this film. Yeah, especially when you bring the shadows up, you could really, really see the blue that's in there. Not a huge fan of that, and I'm not sure why it happens. Maybe someone in the comments can let me know. I was out in Greenpoint on a walk around Kent Ave, and thought I'd take a photo of the skyline. I know that I said in the first part of the video to shoot low contrast scenes, but I was intentionally looking for some high contrast scenes just to sort of test the film and see what it does. And we actually get quite a bit of detail here, but there is a bit of information loss. Let's see if I want to raise the shadows. Yeah, we're losing quite a bit of that information here in the darkest parts. That is not coming back. You know, it is worth noting that some of these more high contrast scenes are going to see some information loss. Here's another one that I took. Really, this one in particular, we see those bold colors again that we saw in the 35 millimeter version of this, you know, and I don't necessarily hate it. I know that there are some people who are like, oh, it's just way too vibrant, you know, but a lot of this stuff can be adjusted in post if you're the type of person to edit your film photos. Not judging if you're not. Same thing with this photo as we saw in this one, but yeah, over here it was just a little bit more high contrast. I was metering for the highlights because I did want to see all of this fall off into shadow, not really expecting to see that blue cast along all of the shadows, but you know what, it is what it is. Overall, I think that this was a pretty good test and a pretty good indication of what Harman Phoenix is capable of. I'm going to move it over to the other Josh to wrap this whole video up. But overall, I was super happy with how this roll turned out, and I was very happy to see that it seems to be quite a leap and quite an upgrade from the 35 millimeter version of it. It doesn't just seem like the same film with a larger negative. It does actually feel like Harman took the time to modify the recipe a little bit, and they heard people's complaints about the punchiness, about the oversaturation, about the heavy contrast, about the grain, and it seems like they did a fair job at trying to address all of those things. And it seems like there's nowhere to go but up for Harman. I am very excited to see what's next for them, whether it's just an upgrade with the Phoenix film, whether it's into 4x5 and some more large format options, or if they have something else up their sleeve like another color negative film that they're working on. This was a blast. I really hope that this inspired some people and more people to shoot Harman Phoenix who are maybe a little bit dubious and who still may be on the fence about this company making a film stock that is cleaner and just something that is able to compete with the more refined films out there, like your Portra 160s, your Portra 400s, etc., etc. Because having competition in the film photography or the film manufacturing world is a net positive for all of us. So I do recommend that everyone out there go support Harman in their mission, because we want to see more companies doing things like this. And it's going to take some time for it to get perfect, but we need to allow it to have that time. But anyway, that's going to do it for me. I'm going to show you all the photos one more time before we get out of here. But don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out on the channel. You can support me by becoming a member. You could also support me by going to my print shop and consider buying a print of my work. I might throw some of these Harman Phoenix photos up on the print shop, and so be on the lookout for that. You can also help support me by watching this video that I made about a novel that I self-published earlier this year, back in the summer, and you can consider buying a copy for yourself or for a loved one, because Christmas is right around the corner. I know it's not even Halloween yet, but Christmas is right around the corner. And yeah, that's going to do it for me. Harman, keep up the good work. I'll see you all next time.